Welcome everyone, Dr. Thor. Get ready for Gnosis. Well, I want to continue my discussions on particularly Asian, or you could almost say foreign, Qi masters of the Qigong type and everything. They don't have to be martial artists, but we're talking about people, and the real money is in Qigong, or using Qi and acupuncture to treat people medically, because this is what's really needed out there, and this is what people will pay hundreds of dollars for. They're not going to pay you hundreds of dollars a month or whatever the going rate is for martial arts training. This generally is rare. And even if you make a few hundred, that's for a month of training or whatever. When you're talking about Qigong experts who channel this energy, who are making that a session. So if you want to be treated with Qigong, it's going to cost you, I'm not sure what it is now, but 25 years ago it was anywhere from 150 to 350 per session. And these sessions, while you felt good going away from them, never really cured anybody. So what are the major problems with this? And of course, that is one of the major problems. One of the major problems with Qigong and acupuncture in general is that you have to go for long-term treatments, which gets very expensive and makes it basically unaffordable. Now, again, it depends on the condition. Some people can go to 3 or 4 acupuncture treatments and their problems are solved. And again, it depends on what it is. If you go there for particularly systematic problems, you have serious illnesses or whatever it is, while you feel great for a couple of days, and it is amazing, it's amazing how that qi flowing in your body makes you feel good, it doesn't really do anything after that. So you have to keep going there at least twice a week, and you're talking about at least probably 100 to 150 per acupuncture treatment, if not more. So you're talking about lots and lots of money. So you can't do this for long periods of time unless you have an awful lot of money and are able to indulge yourself that way. But there are other problems which I'm going to talk about now. This has nothing to do with anything of a serious nature in terms of the reality of what's going on in the world in terms of liking or disliking cultures or anything. Personally, I have no use for anybody or any culture. Everybody generally are the same. They're corrupt and rotten. And every culture will have individual people that may or may not be good. But it's very difficult to find that in a lot of cultures because cultures do whatever they're told to do as a group. So if you're a good person, you're not going to fight against your caliph, your minister, your local boot-thugged police. You're not going to do that. You're going to go along because the path of least resistance. You're not going to stand up for anybody or anything, period. So we have to keep that in mind with the realities that are going on there. So it's very difficult to find good people. And while I've met a few nice people and some things here, well, in the end, they generally are not going to stand by you and stand with you. Most people are fair weather friends, and that's the way it is. Are they going to stand up? Are they going to do anything? Do they assist? Well, it's very rare if you find people assist to do anything. I've been doing things for 40 years, and you don't find people that generally stand behind you. Yet, of course, the Satanists, the criminals, etc., have a whole team of people, and they're usually paid, by the way, that they tend to stick together and harass you. So, even people that know you and everything else, they don't go to your channel, they don't watch your videos, and they don't leave comments. This is very typical, where it can be very easy. But, you know, they are your supporters to whatever. But the weakness of support always disables a lot of people in doing things they have to. So that's the nature of the world. But the bottom line is that one of the problems that I ran into with these Qi masters, these were people of great note. They were written up in books. I'm trying to remember with the... I think it's Paul Dong wrote the book Super Psychics of China, whatever. This is a rare book. It's a little difficult to get. And that talk about a bunch of Qi masters and the research that the Chinese did in these areas, which is quite fascinating, but how can we judge if any of this is real? I mean, they've published a lot of this stuff, just like the Russians have, but it's all in Chinese and in Russian, and very little of this ever seems to be translated. period. But it's there, I think, and some of it is accessible. Certainly, Paul Dong's book references all these different people that did that kind of research at that particular time. But we don't know where all of this goes. This is the secrets of secrets, and nobody talks about empowerment that isn't based by machines or guns, because it's too dangerous to have an individual person doing something. And if you can, you don't necessarily want to give that information out to others. So this is one of the problems. This is the bigger thing, the secrecy factor of what's going to be shared with you. That's as well. Now if you're getting a treatment of Qigong, then nothing has to be shared with you. If you want to learn, or you're doing a martial arts, well, what are they going to share with you? And it's already, Paul Dong has talked about, I hope that's his name, that did Empty Force, talked about the fact that, and we know this with the history of Bruce Lee, that you don't share stuff with Westerners. It's to the point that they will kill you. So this is a problem. So there's always that racist attitude that you're going to get from the Asians in particular. They don't want to teach you. And again, this is what Bruce Lee had to face. And they even sent people to kill him and fight him for doing this. And the fact that you're not supposed to even learn this unless you're 100% Chinese. Now, Bruce Lee was 1/4, and it's very typical of these Arabic Germans, that they're all over the world doing all their dirty deeds everywhere. So he was part German Arabic, because Germans come from Iran. They're Arabs. So the whole idea is that, so they didn't like that to begin with. So, and they didn't like the fact that he was teaching at that particular time, and I guess it was the 70s or 60s, that he was teaching Westerners. So this was a big no-no in that industry. So now this continues, of course, if you're learning from Asians in general. So if you go to an Asian, or anybody for that matter, they hide stuff of what are secrets, and particularly deadly stuff. They don't want to teach you deadly things. A prime example of this is people who then, of course, tend to laugh at Steven Seagal, and, of course, Aikido, which tends to be a less brutal martial art. But don't think that in any way there isn't all sorts of techniques to kill people using Aikido. And if you think that's not the fact, well, you're kind of dumb. Who's going to get that? Well, only masters get that, and only masters pass it on to other masters, or anyone to begin with. So this is so typical in anything that is secret or kept within a club. The most of life that is potent or works, or what the tricks of the trade are, regardless of what it is, gets to very few people, even if you pay experts to teach you maybe 1% of that. But most of it is not given to you. Secrets are made and kept, and they're kept to certain people. So we have to understand that. So when you get involved with these things, you have to understand that you're with these particular people, no matter whom they are, and it doesn't necessarily have to be Asians alone. It could be other people that are just not going to tell you their system. I've had people tell me this. I had one Salat guy tell me, well, I suffered in the jungles of Indonesia. I'm not telling you any secrets. When I was sharing stuff with him as a fellow person developing certain things, but he felt his stuff was worth more. And of course he was involved in criminal activities, as most martial arts people are, because there's no money in it. And of course that's their attitude. So as I said, it doesn't have to be a person from Asia, but the bottom line is that they're supposed to teach you the ABCs. Past that, the professional, the expert techniques, the deadly things are not passed on to you. So remember that this is the training that everybody goes. You go and train, you take a course somewhere on whatever it is, automobile mechanics. They're not going to teach you the tricks of the trade. They're going to teach you the ABCs. So this is the reality of life. And, you know, a lot of people don't really get this. So you really have to know somebody. You have to be involved with people for years to get the integral secrets of things that are going on. And quite frankly, I do the same thing in my own business of scalar radionics and other techniques. Advanced techniques are not just given out willy-nilly or put in books. That doesn't help you in the bigger picture. You teach people the really good hardcore basics and stuff that really works because you're a professional, but you got to understand there's always secrets, and secrets are kept. So this is the way of the world. So it's best everyone understands that. So that's number one. But again, when you're getting a treatment or somebody is demonstrating something, this is different. So what is the problem? Now, I met this guy who was featured in all these books and everything out at a seminar in the Los Angeles area. I'm trying to remember where it was. Somebody sponsored this guy to come over from China. He did have, at that time, in Northern California, and I'll be giving more information out on this. This is a guy who does the fast Qigong. He was known supposedly to knock people over with Qi. I didn't see any of that personally. What was demonstrated to me of his personal power was not very personal. I didn't see any great effects there. And there are problems that we're going to get down into the base reality of communicating. So this guy did have an actual institute in Northern California, which he closed down soon after that seminar, and moved over to open a institute. I guess somebody sponsored him again, which is so typical in Berlin. So typical of the German Arabs, that they have lots of money they got from all their illegal practices that they do now, and all their Nazi gold they have, which has never been found. This is all part of their money, and they're just rolling in dough. So they paid this guy off to go open a school there. And he supposedly had all sorts of powers, which were not demonstrated to me, but I only met him for a few hours and didn't have a chance to follow up on him. But he had this unique Qigong, which you basically psyched your body up with, like you were taking amphetamines. And I did do this practice, and it did work. And the other thing it did is it stopped your craving for food. Very potent. He also stated that he could energize his entire body and didn't eat. And there is an actual, and again, these things are on DVDs, etc. I'm going to try and dig these out and see what we can connect people with. Also, he had a particular chant that would stop you from desiring food and energize your body. Now, these are all great things to talk about, how it works. You would have to do a lot of study to see if this works, to see if these people are real. Most of these non-eaters are eating. They draw sun, they do other things. This is a famous thing of looking at the sun at a certain early time of day and supposedly energizing your body. Now, these people have generally been found to be fraudulent. But again, you have to do research, and you can't trust anybody. Of course, he had a giant ego and thought that that the Chinese were the Atlanteans and they knew everything, blah, blah, blah. Of course, the history of the world, most things have come from China and from Egypt. Almost entirely everything comes from there. And of course, there was great societies in North America, South and Central America, but these societies are much older and they are pretty much in jungles, but there's an amazing, so the greatest societies apparently has started in North America, moved down to Central and South America because they dwarf what was created by Egypt. But certainly the inventions and the great things from the printing press to most gunpowder and everything else and kind of nice stir fry come from China. So the whole idea is, and they don't get any credit for things. And of course, it's unfortunate that their society has decayed into basically a money-based society where that's all that matters. It's really sad. There's no values in communism, and that's really sad. But certainly so-called religious people haven't done anything either. So it's typical of humans. So what is the big problem here? So this guy had a terrible, terrible ego, really didn't prove much of anything, thought he could cure people by waving their hand over him or doing other things. And it just didn't work out from what I can tell. But you can't test somebody in a big group meeting based in a few hours of doing things. But certainly, his unusual fast Qigong certainly did work. Now, how much personal power he had, did he not eat, or other things, we just don't know. And as I said, they are very money-oriented. They are not going to tell you anything. They're not friendly to you in general, and there are reasons for this to a great degree. And the point is, reality is that you can't communicate with them. They do not speak English. So when I was talking to this guy and trying to get concepts across to him, I would talk to the translator for 2 or 3 minutes, giving them some, and she would say about a sentence to him, and that would be the answer of it. So this obviously wasn't a proper translation, and they're not going to bother trying to work that way. Now, working through translators is very difficult and something that is very stressing. People don't understand this. They think it's a simple conversation. It isn't. It's a stress conversation. The flow of energy and communication is pretty much nil because it's stop, it's start, it's wait, and all this stuff that comes with it, so it's a nightmare. This is even a problem with the modern translation technologies, which make it a little better, but not that much better because you still have to have a pause, and it's an unnatural way of communicating. And if you're trying to communicate things that are not go to restaurant B, stop here, it's around the corner. All of these things, when you get past that level of basic communication, things deteriorate horribly. It's the same thing with translations in books and everything else. The bottom line is that what does that translation mean? And when you're translating difficult languages, and particularly not Chinese, which isn't all that difficult to translate, I should say, this becomes a problem. Because Chinese is very much like English, but if you get these god-awful European languages, which have 3,000 words that you put together in 10,000 ways to mean something, it becomes a horrific problem of communication and translation of any kind of serious information. When you're trying to get across serious, complicated issues like energies, there's a problem. So the fact that these people do not speak the language, and this could be the Russians or anybody else, it could be the Thais, it doesn't matter where they come from. Latins are notorious in not speaking English. So if you learn a Latin system or you're learning certain systems of healing or occultism from a Latin, they're not going to speak your language, and translators don't work very well. So this is a big problem. They don't speak English. My opinion in general of all the people I met were, but of course, if you can't speak with them, it's hard to tell, is they were kind of dummies. You know, they do Qigong like we play baseball. So it's as simple as that. So they came over here and opened a Qigong thing because that's part of their society, as if we would go to Korea and open up a baseball store. They are not too smart in any of this, and they've learned something, and that's it. And how good or not they are, there's no way of knowing unless they become popular, and you assume they're popular because they're successful. Well, I'm not sure that's true either. So we don't really know, like all healing, it is based on the problem the person has, and it's very individualistic, so you can't say, well, they heal it. They don't heal everybody. And the point is that some people have amazing cures. How? Where? We don't know. But the point is you cannot talk with them seriously about anything. You can't communicate ideas. I tried to help this guy with business stuff because I had a retail store at that time. He couldn't get that. He didn't get the fact of growing his business and doing other things. All of this was that. And they want to take advantage of you as well. This guy didn't want to cooperate. He didn't want to do anything. This was a Korean guy. Who did have some power, but didn't want to really work with it. And they don't speak the language, even to a credible level of communication. So you're screwed. Plain and simple. You cannot get any kind of complicated information there or know what they're doing, and they're not interested in doing it. Now, if again, like with most things, and of course even with me, I mean, if some people throw around a lot of money, well, you tend to spend more time with them. So I'm assuming if you did that, you would get better results from it. But as I said, these people couldn't make it in Northern California or in California in general, and somehow decided to move to one of the most strangest places to do anything, which is moving into Germany, into around Berlin to teach. But this was all set up by a German to move them over where they could make money. Now, he had students all over China, apparently, and other places in the world, and this is how he made his money. I'm not sure why you have to, since in China, if you get a following, you've got, you know, hundreds of thousands of people. But this is the reality that was going on there for whatever reason that may be, which I find very strange. But it doesn't matter who they are. I went to many of these people. They don't speak the language. You don't get anything with them. It's almost down to sign language. And someone who's charging you $200 a session or more, you expect a little better out of that. And they will not learn the language. They're not smart people, and they're not interested in doing that. my opinion of all these people, regardless of where they come from. And this is in general, energy people or people involved in most aspects of alternative stuff tend to be ignorant people that don't really get it, period. But I guess this is in life. How many bright people have you met in any industry, medicine, law, etc.? They're all little goofballs stealing your money and giving you what are pretty crappy, low-level services, and that's the reality of it. So that's the big problem with anybody. If you cannot speak to someone, you're better off trying to find out, did this person write a book, learn from the book, and maybe learn from a teacher that does speak your language. And this doesn't have to be English. English is international and should be because of the simplicity of it and the vastness of it. But if the bottom line is that you have to find something. So going to somebody, unless they're going to do a, quote, treatment on you and you don't have to talk much, is the only value you're going to get. Trying to learn something from these people is a waste of time, and they're not very smart business-wise. They're not very smart in any area whatsoever. But it's not just them, it's everybody. The low level of basically bottom feeders that we have out there is the norm. Understand that and just go in forearmed. Forewarned is forearmed. And it's as simple as that. Don't trust anybody. Don't believe any of it. And make sure you get what you feel you deserve out of something. But if they're not going to be able to speak your language and you have to go through translators, you are in big trouble. Until next time, people.